All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. We started this podcast as a way to create a central resource of the best financial advisor practice growing tips shared by the most outstanding advisors in the industry, of which our guest today is definitely one. And he may regale us with some acoustic guitar or piano as well. These outstanding financial advisors agree to be on the show and provide a ton of value for free, all in the hopes that our audience might learn from their words. My father was a financial advisor, and financial advisors are the main clients we serve. So my marketing agency's mission is to help every financial advisor grow their business in an effort to help the world become more financially secure. Today, we have the rare pleasure of talking with an incredible financial advisor, Franklin J. Parker. Franklin, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm not sure where you want to start. I'm sort of an accidental financial advisor. I spent most of my career feeling like an imposter, but yeah, I grew up on a working cattle ranch in Central Texas.
Mhm.
Went to school for music. I got a music degree, which I don't recommend. I
Mm.
pivoted into finance because I wanted to eat just in time for 2007, 8, 9, 10 to hit. And I thought, what
Perfect.
am I doing? I got to get out of this business. It's ridiculous. But had no plan B and managed to
Mm.
stick it out. So yeah, here we are.
Nice. Wow. Okay. That's you are our first musician slash financial advisor. But
Yeah, you might be surprised.
that's fun.
Where finance, I think, is a bit of a catch-all for us misfits. I know a guy. He's a good friend of mine, and he lives in Austin. He's a prop trader for a firm, and he has a philosophy degree. And so he and I were kind
Mm.
of lamenting.
Good buck in that market.
Right, right. We were sort of lamenting the nonsense of getting non-vocational college degrees. But people like that seem to always end up in finance. I don't know why, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So did you grew up in the Dallas Fort Worth area?
No, no. So I grew up in a tiny town. There's not a stoplight in the whole county to this day,
Wow.
as a matter of fact.
My goodness.
Down in Central Texas, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar at all with Texas, but I grew up about 2 hours sort of northwest of Austin.
Okay.
And there's another little community 1 county over called Fredericksburg, which is a bit of a tourist spot. But it's the prettiest part of the state. Central Texas is gorgeous. Rolling hills, beautiful rivers.
Hmm.
It's a great place to live and grow up, but outside of Austin, or at least where I grew up outside of Austin, there was just not a lot of opportunities. So, moved to Dallas and have been here ever since. And
Hmm.
interestingly, I saw a Bloomberg article come across my desk the other day that Dallas is now the number 2 financial center in the United States. So we've
Really?
surpassed California and Chicago, and only second to New York, which was surprising to me. Now, I have no
Wow.
idea how Bloomberg calculates such things, but that's
Yeah.
probably above my pay grade to know that anyway.
I mean, it seems like Texas is just it's like the new spot for all the, cool swinging companies to go, right? Like
It has been
Tesla's moving
booming.
over there,
Sure.
Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Tesla moved their headquarters here after the whole Delaware debacle with Elon Musk's bonus. He's moving
Mhm.
SpaceX officially to Texas, although they've been here since they started. And then, like in Dallas, we've got a big Toyota headquarters. They moved out of California. We've got a State Farm headquarters. We've got a JP Morgan headquarters that just moved out of New York. It's pretty wild. We're just getting a
Mhm.
massive influx of
Yeah.
and I can see why. It's an easy place to do business. It's a low cost of living. I can see how folks would look at their bills in California and start eyeing Dallas and think, man, I can live like a king out there.
Or Barcelona.
Or Barcelona. I mean, that's where you are now, yeah? Yeah.
No, that's we were in Los Angeles or Pasadena, and you said looking at your bills, you're like, huh, it'd be a lot cheaper if we would. I mean, I would love to go to Austin. My wife was like, no, let's do Barcelona. I'm like, all right, don't
Yeah.
don't threaten me
Well,
with a
have
good
the
time.
adventure, man, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to me that Texas, that's like the future of, I don't want to say America, but like that's like where all of our energy comes from, and it's where people are allowed to do business. Like California is Pretty
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And I've got some clients, just a few in California, and I, of course, have some colleagues in California and New York as well. And I mean, they tell me these stories. It's just very difficult to get anything done, you know.
Mhm.
And in Texas, I mean, it's not that it's completely hands off. There's definitely some things, some boxes you have to check, but yeah, for the most part, like if I want to start a business and hire people and fire people and experiment and get capital, it's a great place to do it. And in
Yeah.
fact, there's a venture capital fund out of Austin that when I was in the family office that I just came out of, we allocated to a few years ago. The rationale was really smart because there's all of this tech talent in, say, Austin, and not the least of which because Dell is there. But there's been a lot more kind of there's a bigger startup ecosystem that's been cultivated out of Austin. And so the idea is like, look, you can build a tech company in Texas, grow it here, and you can invest in it at Texas valuations, but then sell it at Silicon Valley valuations, right? So once it's grown, so you kind of get this
Yeah.
geographical arbitrage, which is kind of nice. And yeah, there's some interesting businesses being built here, which is fun. It's fun to
Mhm.
see.
Yeah. And it's got a good culture to it. I've supremely enjoyed the time I spent in Austin, and then, I love to just be out on a boat, and
Yeah.
being out on a boat in Lake Travis, you're like, "Where the hell are we right now?"
Yeah.
There's these giant hills and,
Yeah.
like, huge
Yeah.
banks, like, you're 200 feet up just
Yeah.
looking down.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Are
No,
we in Lake Como right now? What's going on?
I know.
Where
It's
we
a
at?"
Central Texas is a beautiful place, and it's Austin has a cool vibe. It's a very laid back vibe. And Texas is not a monolithic place. You can find the pockets of culture that you want to find,
Mhm.
and it's lovely. It's just a lovely place to be.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we could wax poetic about, Texas until the cows come home, but we're here to talk to you, so
Yeah.
I'm very curious. You got a music degree. How did you're like, "Alright, I also wanna eat." Unfortunately, we don't pay our music folks how we should in this country, or probably this world. Why finance? How'd that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I got into finance through a paid internship with Edward Jones, actually, just kind of
Mm,
the retail wealth management shop. And that was perfect for me. It was a perfect entree into the business because um, I get to they have a great training program. I get to study under a financial advisor who'd been in the business for 25 years. And look, I mean, you know how the business works. He worked 15, 20 hours a week and he was just talking to his friends all day. And I thought, yeah, sign me up. This is great. So I did my 7, I did my 65, I got licensed and I got let loose on the world, right, in 2007. And I thought, this is great. Easiest job in the world. Everything goes up. No one ever complains. And then 2008 hit and it was a complete disaster. I thought, what am
Oh
I
my
doing? I had to go back
gosh.
to music. But it was the great financial crisis and no one was hiring millennials with a music degree. So I had no choice but to kind of stick it out. And to be fair, I was pretty scared to sell in an up market for a long time because I thought, look, if someone's not going to move their accounts when they're down 40% and and can't get through to their advisor because he's so busy, I'm never going to get their accounts. Um, anyway, but managed to, like I said, build a book of business and have some success. But what '08 gave me was really an intellectual quest, right? So coming out of 2008, I had kind of a fundamental question because I never had a finance degree. I didn't have that day in class where I understood where all the advice we were giving was coming from. So I was like, why do we say diversify? Why do we say buy and hold forever? Why am I telling clients don't worry, it'll come back? Is that even relevant advice anymore? Um, I mean, I remember in October of 2008, not even cash was safe, right? Like gold was down 20%, bonds were down 15%, stocks were down 20%, and money markets were in danger of breaking the buck. The FDIC had to step in and guarantee money market funds because they were not returning dollar for dollar. And I was just like, diversify. It doesn't work. Everything goes down, right? So it sent me on this intellectual quest to just try to understand where this advice is coming from. And the long and short of it is I kind of found this new area of research called goals-based investing. That was new at the time. And the first like academic papers were all about tax awareness. So, where your assets are located, how often you trade, what's your actual after-tax alpha, as opposed to, in the abstract, what your alpha is. And I thought, okay, I feel like I'd found my people, because this was about investing in the real world for real people. And what I'd come to learn was that traditional portfolio theory, I don't want everyone's eyes to glaze over here, okay? So I'll try to make it, I know I'm talking to other professionals here, so I'm going to word it that way, but traditional portfolio theory was built for institutions, not for individuals, right? And institutions have a few big advantages over the rest of us. First of all, they're usually tax advantaged. So if they're trading, if I'm a pension fund and I'm placing trades, I don't really have to worry about paying a capital gain on my gains. And then the second big advantage is that they never die, right? There's never a moment where an insurance company says, I absolutely have to have this money. Otherwise, I can't eat. They can wait. They can wait 5 years for their risk to be rewarded. They can borrow in debt markets. There's things they can do. If you're retired or about to retire, you need that money there. And if it's not there, you can't go borrow in debt markets to fund your retirement, like an insurance company can. And so there are these limits around that. And that makes you, whether we like it or not, a market timer, right? So there is a point at which you have to sell down your investments to live on. Anyway, and so I feel like I had found my people, because this is what the conversation was in that world. And my fundamental question was, coming out of 2008, because I had seen it, was how much can you lose in an investment portfolio before you've lost too much, before you can't recover anymore? And it's not that markets don't come back. Of course markets come back. It's that they don't come back in time for you, right? Because you have a time limit. And this is a fun fact that most people overlook, but if you were taking 4% withdrawals on your portfolio through 2007, 8, 9, 10, and so on, you did not see your portfolio recover its 2007 high until 2016. You lost an entire decade, right? This is not a small problem for people who are on a fixed income and trying to live their best life in retirement. So anyway, the long and short of it is that 2008 kind of gave me this intellectual quest that ultimately culminated in the book and then founding Directional, which is where I'm at now. So
Okay. That's awesome, man. It sounds like baptism by fire there.
it really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was rough times for sure.
Yeah. So how did you figure out the best kind of sales pitch and philosophy, like during these in literally insane times,
Yeah.
to stay afloat and grow your business and convince people to work with you?
In the beginning, I wasn't, I was just parroting the lines I was taught, really, and at the time, the 2007, 8, and that period was really, that was the transition from kind of the old stockbroker model, to the new sort of financial advisor model, right? So when I was trained, it was, here's our list of buy stocks. Go out and talk to prospects about these, or, here's a high paying municipal bond, like start making calls. That was kind of how I got into the business. And, it works to throw a lure in the water, and it really, what you do with the no is what matters, right? So, hey, I've got this municipal bond paying 5.5% tax free. I think this would be a good fit for you. Is this something you're interested in? Everyone says no. Okay, well, what does your 401k look like, so I can make better recommendations, right? Then you can start having a conversation. But that was the old model. I don't think that's certainly not the way I operate anymore, right? I'm much more centered around holistic planning, around holistic investment management. And my vision for where the business is headed is towards hyper customized, hyper individualized solutions, right? So to sit down with someone and take into account their exact tax situation and their financial goals and their ethical constraints and all of the things that go into making you you. Um, and I'm trying to compete now on how granular I can get your investment management and your financial plan. Um, and so rather than just being a number at Vanguard and you're in the same fund as 10,000 other people, no, let's build your portfolio around you and what you're trying to do in your life. And that conversation I'm getting some traction with. I think people are hungry for that in a way that, that they didn't know was possible before, right? You're just saying something different.
Mhm. Wow. That is unusual in this market. Most are one size fit all.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate because, I mean, look, we all know how the business works, right? Like we tend to build these model portfolios. You're going to get 8 to 10 kind of buckets, and the firm is competing on who has a better vision of what's next. And what's odd to me is like we'll do all this great financial planning work. We'll generate a 150-page e-money report or, forecast someone's 1040 for the next 15 years and write capital. But then all of that gets swept under the rug and we're just going to put you in one of these buckets, right? And should I sell your highly appreciated Apple stock and buy an S&P fund? Well, I don't know, maybe, maybe not. There's a calculation we can do, but no one does it because you can't scale a practice that way. So some of this is a technology question, right? And that's something else I'm working on too, is to try to get the technology to a place where you can really deliver those solutions confidently and scale a practice, because that's the challenge.
Hmm,
I mean, when I was in a
that's
family office, I was the chief investment officer for a family here in Dallas. I mean, that's what I got paid to do. They were like, just customize my stuff and we would evaluate deals and do private investments and manage public markets, but all on a customized basis. And if you're a billionaire, you can pay someone to do that. But, if you're retiring with $5 to $10 million, paying someone full time to do that doesn't make any sense, right? So how do you deliver that same kind of service level and that same result to the rest of us? And that's what I'm trying to tackle now with directional advisors.
mhm. A billionaire's asset management, on a peasant's wage.
Exactly. Or as my country friends would put it, you're living the champagne life on the beer budget. Right.
There you go. That's more tailored to your
Yeah.
audience, possibly.
Yeah.
So how did you get clients, when you started? How did you get clients when the market was good? How are you getting clients these days? Any,
Yeah. Yeah.
fun
Good question.
methods?
So, when I started, Edward Jones, they train you to go door knocking, which I thought was a metaphor, but no, I literally went door to door in neighborhoods and handed out business cards and tried to talk to people on their doorstep. And that was rough.
Mhm.
But it works to an extent. I mean, it's time consuming. I don't think it's a good use of my time now, but at the time, it does a lot of things for a young advisor. I mean, the first thing it does is it teaches you how to talk to people. If you can sit on someone's doorstep and have a conversation when all they're trying to do is close the door in your face, and then somehow manage to get somewhere with that, you're probably going to be okay. Like you can talk to anybody anywhere after that. So from that perspective, it was very good. Um, but that was how I built my core book business in the beginning. And then, since then it's been much more speaking. Like I said, I wrote a book. That's not really like a client facing book, but it is not a bad calling card to have out there. And then um, I've done networking events over the years. I think that was probably not a great use of my time in retrospect because I don't know. A lot of those rooms, I feel like, are not your clients. You know what I mean? Like your clients are just living their life. They're at home with their families. They're at work. They're running their business. They're not in a networking group. But I have had a lot of success networking with other professionals, right? So specifically bankers, I found bankers to be effective as a referral source. CPAs less so because they have a kind of stable of financial advisors that are always begging for referrals from them, and then also estate planning attorneys I don't think are particularly effective either for the same reason. But bankers seem to be pretty good, and then doing some marketing efforts, right? So some digital marketing, doing a newsletter. I've paid for leads in the past, which has been okay. Um, it's been a smattering of things up to now. But again, like what I'm trying to build here is a marketing wheel that you can turn that reliably generates clients, because then I can start to scale that. Then I can start to bring in other advisors and say, look, I'm going to give you clients until you tell me to stop. And then, by the way, we're also doing this other cool thing with, fully customized investment management and financial planning that no one else is doing yet. And I think if I can kind of build those two things, then that really gives you a competitive edge in the marketplace.
You're like, all right, advisor, just say when.
Yeah, that's right. That's the
That's
idea.
yeah, that's great. Have you gotten any traction with any digital marketing strategies?
Yes and no. So I've paid third party firms to do that, and look, it works. I can reliably generate leads. I'm trying to in-house that at the moment, right? So I'm bringing on a marketing team to just build that wheel for specifically directional, as opposed to it being a more generalized thing, because I want to own it, and that is going to be a combination of like several things. So social media exposure, PR, um, straight up paying for Google ads, things like that, right? But so much of it is trying to find what niche you can dominate, because you just can't compete with like a Morgan Stanley on financial advisor as a search item. You've got to find kind of a niche that you can fit in that no one else is really looking at. And that is a way that you can build that wheel to at least start, and then you can start to expand into these other places. So I know enough about digital marketing to know that I need to hire an expert, right? Which is what we've done here.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's the same as being like, "No, I'm gonna manage my own 401k in retirement."
Well, right,
It's like,
exactly.
that might not be the best idea."
Yeah. I mean, I liken it to going to the mechanic, right? Like,
Mhm,
could I figure out how to fix my truck if I needed to? Sure, I could, but I don't have the time to do that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather pay somebody else to know what they're doing and trust that,
mhm.
I'm not going to get in there and break something eventually.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mm. So you mentioned niches. Do you have a specific, type of client that you focus on, that you feel you most effectively serve,
Yeah.
or enjoy serving the most?
Yeah. Business owner clients for me are my, um, I don't know. That's really my bread and butter, I think. And I think it's because I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurship. I think entrepreneurship is one of the most powerful forces on the planet.
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about what an entrepreneur does, like you show up and nothing exists. It's not that nothing exists, but this thing that you want to build, it doesn't exist. This is not.
Yeah.
It's just a figment of your imagination.
Mhm,
And then to just through sheer force of will and resources and organization and salesmanship and everything that you can do, you just sort of will this thing into existence. I mean, that's absolutely amazing to me. I love that.
mhm. Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for business owners. I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurship, um, and admiration, I think, because it's so strange to me, like some of the most successful people that I've worked with, that I have worked for, um, I don't they're not particularly sophisticated most of the time. Like, don't tell anyone, you know? But business is not that complicated. I mean, it's not easy. It's hard to
Yeah.
do. But you buy something for X and you sell it for more than X. You do that enough and at scale and you're in business, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know, I have a lot of respect for people who just show up and grind it out and make it happen and solve problems. I mean, there's always some random problem to solve and keep going, you know?
Mhm.
And then business owners, as a financial advisor, um, they have a lot of intricate needs, right? So there's a lot of things that need doing. They respect your expertise. They respect the fact that you're kind of out there hustling too. I like that. That I like I like the appreciation and kind of there's lots of opportunity for us to slot in and do some things with them.
Mhm. Um,
That was
yeah.
maybe a long-winded answer to a very
No,
simple
that
question.
was exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, that was a very eye-opening moment, in my life when I realized, like, these blue-collar businesses, some of them are, like, dirty jobs or, like, digging ditches or paving
Yeah,
driveways or whatever. They're
yeah,
making tens,
yeah.
hundreds, billions of dollars sometimes.
Yes, yes.
You're like, "What the"
I used to think, man, I mean, if you'd asked me, say, 10, 15 years ago, I would have thought that you would have had to have come up with the next iPhone to be, to be a billionaire or something close to a
Mhm,
billionaire. Or, you gotta come up with some new hot thing that everybody wants and kinda see where the market's headed. And that is just not true. It's not true at all. Like, um, I don't know, like, it doesn't have to be sexy to work. And in fact,
mhm,
it probably is better if it's not, you know? I mean, as a professional investor, like, as a professional capital allocator, and especially when I was working for, very high net worth families, um, when someone was pitching me a deal, sort of the shinier and sexier and the more buzzwords were attached to it, really the more skeptical I was of doing the deal, right? It was like the less chance of success that there was. But if you
yeah,
brought me like a ditch digging company and you had some in with getting these contracts, no one questions the ditch digging invoice, right? Like they just pay it. It's not a complicated business. Like I like that a lot. Um, I don't know. It's like my grandpa, he's not particularly sexy, but I love him to death. And that's how I approach investing too, I think. So
yeah. No, it was very eye-opening. I'm like, "Ah, maybe maybe we should focus on those guys."
yeah,
They
yeah,
got
for
they
real.
got they got a lot of money.
They do.
Um,
They do. And they
yeah,
appreciate what you bring to the table, right? They
yeah,
they appreciate you offering them solutions for oftentimes problems they didn't even know they had, you know?
mhm,
It's
mhm.
great. It's great.
Yeah, and they're usually, in my experience, like, very salt of the earth, like,
Yes.
genuine,
Yes.
just appreciative, friendly, like, reminiscent of, like, my dad or, like,
Yeah.
my uncle or my grandpa, just,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, "You're paying me, like,
Yeah. They're not
I
beating you up over
appreciate
25
that."
basis points, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever. They're not they're just they appreciate what you do. Do a good job for them. 'Em. They'll keep you around forever. There's
Yeah,
loyalty.
yeah,
It's kind of like you can do a handshake deal with folks like that. I just love that. I
mhm,
mean, it's how I grew up, They're the people I grew up with.
yeah,
But that's me, that's my heart, and I recognize that kind of everybody has their own personality type, and they work best with other folks. I mean, like, I know an advisor, and he kinda came out of the engineering world, and he just works really well with engineers, you know, and and loves getting in the weeds and digging deep on, portfolio metrics and talking about what those things are, and look, I can hang with the best quants, but it's just not I don't wanna talk about that all day, right? Like, I'll do it, but I don't it's not my if I had to do that all day, I would not enjoy my job, you know?
yeah, yeah. Any interesting, tricks or strategies for getting on these ideal business owner prospects' radars?
Yeah, I don't think there is, like I don't have it. I don't have a magic, um, formula that just seems to always work. I think what I have found is being in a place I remember early on, a guy gave me some advice, and I thought it was really annoying advice as a young advisor. But he said, "Look, time in the business is your most valuable asset." And that has proven to be true. Like being in a place for a long time, now I'm coming into 18 years in the business, and I've been in the Dallas area that whole time. You st- you the community shrinks and shrinks and shrinks the longer you exist, right? So you know the key players know you. And I would say too, having interesting conversations is maybe I don't want to sound pretentious here or braggarty, but um, I found that's been one of my most valuable assets is learning how to have a good conversation
Mm.
because it, business is really all about, well, I wouldn't say it's all about, but so much of business is not who you know, but who knows you, right? I can't tell you how many opportunities I've gotten because someone remembered me. And that's the key, right? And so, how do you make a mark in people's minds where they remember you a year from now after you had a lunch? I mean, I have a client, and he's a client because we sat down maybe 7 years ago, and he had a business, and he was run ragged. He was a small business owner wearing all the hats, trying to also do the job that they did. And I remember we were at lunch, and he was just kind of like venting. And I'm, when people are venting, I just keep my mouth shut and listen.
You
And he got to
smart
the end, and
man.
I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Man, you don't really own a business until it runs without you. Like right now, you own a job."
Ooh,
And he said,
we're a jail cell.
Yeah, exactly." And he said, "Man, that's great advice." So he called me back 5 years after that lunch, and I hadn't talked to him in 5 years. And he said, "Franklin, I got to tell you something." I was like, "Yeah, I haven't talked to you in so long. How's it going?" He goes, "It couldn't be better." He goes, "Believe it or not, you gave me the best business advice anyone had ever given me, and I completely rejiggered how I did my business. Completely did, I started hiring people and delegating, and like I feel like I can live my life and I can breathe." I was like, "Man, it's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that." And he's like, "And now I've got $2 million. And I need you to manage it." And I was like, "Okay, let's go." Right? Uh, yeah, so like that kind of thing, but just listening to
Yeah,
people and having good conversations, and then they remember you, right? Like, how do
yeah.
you make that mark? And everyone will have kind of a different angle for that.
Mhm,
But I will say, I feel like the art of conversation is getting lost today, and that's a problem.
mhm,
That's a real problem. So if you're an advisor, and especially if you're a young advisor, if you can listen well and have interesting conversations, you do that long enough, you're going to be okay. It's not going to solve your production problem next month, but you're going to be okay long term.
mhm. There's this, very intriguing and interesting underlying philosophy to everything that you're sharing today. I you just mentioned, 5 years ago, you were, 33 or 35 between I think we're around the same age.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
40.
okay, I'm
Yeah.
38, I'll be 39 in a couple months.
Okay, yeah, we're about the same age.
Yeah. Um,
Older
like
millennials. Yeah,
yes, elder millennials.
that's right.
How did you learn that you don't own a business until it can run without you? How did you learn everything you're sharing
I have
that
no
is
idea.
similar to that?
I have no idea. I don't know how I learned that. I don't even know if that's true, to be honest.
It is true. That's
Like,
100% true.
you know, um, I listen a lot, to be fair, and especially early on. And in a way, I think like my long-standing imposter syndrome, I think has been an asset to me, right? Because I never showed up and felt like I know how to do this job. Even today, like I don't, and I've got some pretty cool credits on my resume. But I still don't feel like yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. And and I think carrying a certain amount of imposter syndrome gives you an asset that people who feel like they know what they're doing don't have, right? So for example, like coming out of 2008, being able to sit back and say, "Look, I have no idea why I'm saying diversify. Why do I say that?" Right? And going back to the drawing board and trying to understand where that advice was coming from, ultimately that culminated in some really cool developments that I've been a part of in both the academic literature, in what is now becoming technology, and what is underpinning the core of the wealth management business, right? And I think it's going to all change over the next 10 to 20 years. And so because of those basic questions and trying to understand them, I feel like I'm really a part of a movement that's what now is called goals-based investing, but 10 years ago it didn't have that name. Um, and the same thing with business, right? Like I'm a country boy with a music degree. Like I don't know anything about business. So when someone starts talking to me about business, I listen. And I'm taking this as like this is true, you know? And then later I'll think about it and I'm like, well, does that make sense? Is that good advice? And the good advice I keep and the bad advice gets discarded. And then I wind up not knowing where anything came from. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, that's great, and I would push back on that. I think you have a lot of inherent business wisdom, and you can tell the difference between good advice and bad advice, inherently, and that's how you're able to give such impactful advice that someone literally, like, builds their business to a great level and is like, "Hey, alright, now I need you to manage this money," after receiving your advice.
Yeah, and to be fair, I did not even remember giving him that advice, right? He called me later and told me about that. So,
Yeah.
I'm very happy that it turned out to be good advice,
Mhm.
but you should always take what I say with a grain of salt. That's
Yeah.
I have expertise in very few areas, right?
Yeah. Well, it goes deep, sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm always curious, for our independent financial advisor guests, how did you make the take the plunge? How did you build up the courage? What inspired you to go that route? Say peace to the big wirehouses.
Yeah, so I kinda started that journey, um, after my stint at Edward Jones, and what kind of happened there is I got again it was crazy times, right? And I got kind of jaded and frustrated with the model and with the corporate atmosphere, I think is how I would word that. And also I was looking at my P&L and I was seeing kind of what my production numbers were and what I was taking home, and I was like, where's all this money going, you know? And so I actually left Edward Jones and went to LPL, and I had managed to instantly increase my production or my take home on basically the same production. And so from that perspective, it was strictly a numbers game. Like that was just a numbers question. I was frustrated. I was coming out of some tough times, and I saw a way to better my own life instantly. So I did, but as a part of that, I had structured a joint venture with a group here in Dallas. They're kind of a regional accounting group, and they have an accounting firm, they have an investment bank, and they had a wealth management arm that was just sort of latent, and they didn't have anybody running it. And I had networked into them and kind of got to know the owner, and we had a good rapport. We liked each other, and he said, "Look, why don't we contract with you to come in and kind of run this wealth management arm?" And I said, "Well, okay." And we negotiated a deal and figured it out. Um, and that was my entree into the family office world, right? So I don't want to mansplain anything, but I'm assuming your listeners are familiar with what a family office is. When you're extremely wealthy, when you're like billionaire status, you don't put your money with Merrill Lynch. You hire a team of people. You hire accountants and you hire investment people and you hire if you have aircraft, you hire someone to manage your aircraft. And if you have lots of art, you hire an art consultant, and you have a group of people who only manage your financial picture, right? Because when you're at $500 million or above, keeping up with that is a full-time job, right? And you need someone to help you. So
It's a team's job.
it's a team's job, yeah. And anyway, so because of how they were structured, they did some external work for some family offices around town, and I kind of was a part of that. And then one of their clients said, "Hey, we kind of want somebody to has your skill set and come in and work with us and work for us." And I thought, well, okay, I'm open to that. And after about 6 months, they took away all my excuses, and I came to work just for them, which was a really fun experience. I enjoyed it a lot, and I learned a ton because one of the things I learned was that the way very wealthy people think about money and business is not the way I was raised, right?
Alright.
It's a completely different kind of technology, and that was immensely valuable for me because I got to see I got to see that thinking, and then I got to see how that world works. I got to see the problems that very high net worth people deal with, which are the same problems the rest of us deal with, just with more zeros behind them. And and it was a wonderful experience. I really enjoyed it. But I kind of got to the end of that tour of duty, and I was realizing that it was, well, the main motivation there was I wanted to build something, right? And you're not going to build something working in a family office. You are working for a builder sometimes, which is exciting, but it's not going to be your thing. And I feel like I clearly see where the wealth management business is headed over the next 10 to 20 years. And this may be my only chance in my life to see something like that and get ahead of it. So that's why I formed Directional. I had a very amicable split with the family. We all still talk. We have a good relationship, and started this shop here. And so I still have a foot in the family office world. I still manage money, do some consulting work for some family offices internationally. But my focus is on building a financial practice for the mass affluent, and really, and you can think of it from a client-facing perspective as taking the tools and techniques and strategies that we were doing in the family office and then applying them to the mass affluent, right, to everyone else, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. That's a brilliant marketing angle there. It's like I spent the last however many years working directly with a family, learning every in and out and every advantage and trick they employ that they literally spend millions of dollars a year to employ, and I'm here to give it to you, you mass
Yeah,
affluent folk.
I think it can be a good marketing angle. I think the problem, I'm so jaded with the family office world for several reasons. That's probably a whole nother conversation. But one of the things that I'm kind of cynical about is that everyone is calling themselves a family office now. Everyone, like, it's like every RAA and their dog is now a family office, and it's immensely irritating. um, and it's irritating for people in a family office. By the way, we all joke about it, or I'm not in a family office anymore, but we used to joke about it. Because look, if you work at UBS, you're not a family office. You're an investment manager, which is fine. Be what you are and be good at it. But don't come calling on me as you're a family office. And we have like a little secret test to decide if you're a family office or not, which is how many hats do you wear other than investment manager, right? What else do you do? And if the answer to that is nothing, then you're not a family office. Don't call yourself that. But anyway, that's a side note. But the challenge with marketing that way is that it's a crowded space now because everyone's saying it.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. But you're talking the talk here.
Well, I have the
So
background, right? So that
yeah,
helps, I suppose. There's an
yeah,
authenticity to it. But yeah, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. Rebrand it somehow. Come up with a
yeah.
different name for a family office.
I do feel like I remember when I started in the business, we were all registered representatives. That was the thing that was on your business card. And then it was like this big transition to financial advisor. Like financial advisor became the cool new term. And now I feel like it's like we're moving again to something else, but family office is getting thrown in there somehow, you know. Like we're all family office professionals now.
Yeah.
Which is not quite accurate, but
Yeah, awesome. Well, we have gone way over, completely lost track of time. This is great. I could talk to you for the rest of your afternoon, my evening.
yeah,
You are a wealth of knowledge and good advice, my friend.
I
I
appreciate
have
being.
two more questions for you, and then I will set you free. One is lighthearted. Any fun stories around finding your largest client or clients?
Man, yeah, I have a lot of stories. Some of them I probably can't tell in public.
We'll have the after dark edit of this
Yeah,
episode.
exactly. We'll have a glass of wine and we can chat. No, so part of I've been to like several kind of family office gatherings, and those are quite the event. But I don't know if did you ever read The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway?
Um, I did not. I'm
Okay.
halfway through For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Okay, I hadn't read that
For
one.
partial
I hadn't
credit.
read that.
Yeah.
So I read The Sun Also Rises like a few years ago, and
Mhm.
I read it and I was like, this book is dumb. Why? I don't understand why he won a Nobel Prize. It reads like kind of someone's journal. Honestly,
Mhm.
it's not
Well,
very interesting.
it's written in a 4th grade, reading
Yeah,
level.
that's right. Which is
Yeah.
on purpose, to be fair. But
Yeah.
but I just I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all.
Mhm.
And then, uh, uh, it's sort of interesting too, I guess, because it's beautiful people in beautiful places, right? And at the time, no one had been to Pamplona and seen the running of the bulls. Americans hadn't really been exposed to 1920s Paris, and so he was painting a picture of a place that most people hadn't seen. But anyway, like the overall book, I was like, this is just not that interesting. And then I was at a family office conference in a beautiful place, and surrounded by beautiful people, well dressed, and da da da. And it suddenly hit me. I was like, I get why. I totally understand what the book was entirely about. Is it was about beautiful people doing beautiful things in beautiful places with absolutely no meaning whatsoever attached to it, right? Like what it's like to live that life, but as a completely vapid existence, right?
Mhm.
And suddenly it hit me. I was like, I'm a character in this book, right? And I think for me that has been one of the things about that world that I've kind of taken a step away from, is just that it can easily become The Sun Also Rises if you're not careful. So that's a cryptic answer maybe, but
That was beautiful answer. That was the most, literary answer we've had on this
it
podcast,
sounded pretty
and I
bougie, didn't it?
thank you. I'm a I'm a secret, screenwriter, filmmaker,
Oh, good for you, man.
is
Yeah.
my, you know, passion. So yeah, love any
Cool.
literary drops or
Yeah.
any novels.
Oh, good.
Awesome. So my final question, it is open-ended. You can take it in any direction with which you choose. And it is, what are you working towards?
Well, that's an easy one for me, because, like I said, I feel like I see, well, on a professional basis, I feel like I see where this business is headed, right? The trend is towards hyper customized, hyper individualized solutions, and away from let's talk about markets, right? And and so we still have a gap to fill, to make that happen, and mainly in technology. So the reason no one's doing that is because you can't scale a practice. So I'm trying to build a firm where that is the core DNA of what we do, is fully customized solutions for clients. And then at the same time, I have a technology startup on the side with a development team, and we are building out the technology to make that a reality, right? So that we can fully integrate financial plans and investment management on a completely personalized basis. So professionally, that's what I'm excited about. And then personally, I'm I think I'm at a point in my life where, like, I remember when the patriarch of the family that I worked for, he had some really interesting advice. He said, "You spend the first like 35 years of your life just figuring things out." He used an expletive there. He said, "You spend the first 35 years of your life just figuring things out, and the last 35 years of your life, you've got to hustle as fast as you can because it goes quick." And I think I'm now in the back half of that, where professionally I feel like I've got my path, and that's very exciting. And then personally, like, I'm excited because I feel like I'm living a life that I enjoy and that I'm proud of, and that I'm excited to wake up every day, And I've been at points in my life where that has not been the case. And so I'm trying to kind of treasure that and hold on to that and keep that moving forward. So
That's beautiful. You found some more great advice, that you knew was good advice to share.
we'll take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I would push back just on the timeline there. I would say I agree the first 35 years, but I'm not sure that, we only have 35 years after that. I
Sure.
think, I don't know. I still feel pretty healthy
Yeah.
nearing 40.
No, I feel pretty good too, but, I think so I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy,
Mhm.
and
I coulda guessed.
you coulda guessed, okay. And, one of the things it kinda teaches you is that it's just you only have so many laps around the sun, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's it, and then we move on to whatever's next, and so, it's about accomplishing what you're here to accomplish. It's doing the work that you find important and meaningful. It's very necessary. But at the same time, you have to construct a life that you enjoy living, right? Like, if you get up every day and you just hate your life, look, it's not that you can just change it all overnight, but let's figure out, you know, where you would like to be, and then let's start taking steps in that direction. And I did that a few years ago, and I had to kind of make some changes and make some adjustments and take a long, hard look at where I was and what I was doing, and start walking in a different direction. And I don't think you're ever like there, but I feel very comfortable and content with the path I'm on now. So yeah, that's important.
And that's, very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for spending time with, me and my audience today. This was fantastic.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. And where can our audience find out more about Franklin J. Parker?
Yeah, I'm not hard to find. I'm on Twitter, at Franklin Parker 1. You can find me on LinkedIn. I accept most requests there. Just drop me a line that you heard me on the podcast. Um, the website is directional-advisors.com with an ORS. Um, I don't know. I'm on Quora. I'm got kind of big following on Quora, which is a random development in my life. But yeah, I'm out there.
Yeah, awesome. We'll be sure to link all of those in the show notes.
All right.
Franklin, again, thank you, man. This was awesome. We should
Enjoyed it.
have a follow-up, just philosophy and advice.
I'd love it. That sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Well, to all our listeners out there, thanks so much for tuning in. Keep on growing out there, everybody.